Welcome back to the Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Week 15 preview. I'm your host, Gamby, with my co-host, Brandon, and we're ready to get you set for the week. There's a lot to take advantage of. There's a lot of teams with really good off-night schedules. You can play it many ways. It's been weeks, I think, since we've had a schedule this good for the case of just streaming.
Yeah, the thing that actually stuck out to me when I was writing the script is it's Week 15 already. That just seems crazy. There's not a lot of time left.
No. I mean, playoffs start Week 22. We're halfway there.
Your math is horrible.
Okay.
We're way past halfway there.
In my head, emotionally, I'm halfway there.
2/3 of the way there.
It didn't feel like at the actual half, it doesn't feel like half. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it doesn't. Because you're still in 2019.
Yeah, like it just doesn't feel like half yet. To me, All-Star break feels like half.
And yet it isn't.
And yet it is. Oh, you're right. Okay, well, my logic is completely flawed. So let's move into the week review. I'll start first with Pecorine. Finally got a goalie goal. It was pretty cool. He actually said that was his dream, was to have a goalie goal, and he ended up achieving it. I hope those people. There's very few leagues that actually count goalie goals. There was one that I saw where they've for years had a bonus of 25 points if a goaltender scores, and that person had him on his team. Lucky him.
I don't think that's happened since Mike Smith, like
2013.
Yeah, I was gonna say 2012. I guess
it was that crazy 0.1 seconds left on the clock in the Arizona Cats game.
Against Detroit, right?
Against Detroit. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, my first part of the week review is Stamkos, Point, and Kucherov been reunited. That's bad news for a lot of players.
Yeah, that's bad news, Bears.
It's great news if you own, especially if you own Point. I feel like is the biggest benefactor of this whole thing. But if you own any of them, it's a bonus. But yeah, it's bad news for it's bad news for Killorn. It's bad news for Cirelli. It's bad news for Palat, who's hurt. So kind of not really a big deal for him, I guess, at the moment. But I can't imagine that his I don't even know if he's injured or sick. I think he's injured, but yeah, he's a low body injury. But regardless, I don't think his injury is the reason for this. In fact, I'm pretty sure the first time they tried it was a game that Palat played in. So sorry to everybody if you own those other guys. Although I don't know. We still have Cirelli on our couple team, and he's still been pretty good. So
yeah, I'm giving Killorn a little bit of a longer leash still. I mean, he's still scoring. He's still in the top power play. So that's right now what I care about, at least in my points league, especially when it comes to Killorn. If he still has an opportunity to get in on the top power play, then that's pretty much good enough for me at the moment.
Yep.
My next part here is another player is Dominik Kahun. So you recommended him on the weekend preview, and that worked out. I mean, if anyone listens to you, yeah, he's amazing. And I think at this point, you've got to start questioning, is he a pickup in general, maybe longer term, if he can actually stick on that Malkin and Russ line.
Yeah, I've got no ideas of getting rid of him on our couple team, which is going to lose this week because we are cursed lately. But he had to face against none other than Tony D because...
Of course, because why not?
But what are you going to do? But yeah, I would like to see him get power play one time. I don't really see it happening. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But the fact that he's playing, somewhere between 18 to 20 minutes a game lately, on that line that just can't do wrong right now is about as good a place as you can be. Crosby is coming back soon, so that's the only thing that I wonder, like, what'll happen. If I'm coaching Pittsburgh, I probably keep that line together as a trio. Why wouldn't you? Give Crosby kind of whoever else. It's always seemed to like not really matter who's been Crosby's wings. He'll get points with anybody you put him with. So the idea of maybe putting Hornquist on his right wing and then kind of pick anybody that's left for his left wing, except for Galchenyuk. Can we just end the Galchenyuk? Can we just jettison him from the league or something at this point? I'm tired of hearing about him.
Galchenyuk is over, and at least in my books, Galchenyuk is over.
What about like McCann? Right? How about McCann?
Yeah, I can get behind McCann. I mean, he did that cool juggling thing. He works.
But that makes sense. You don't need McCann as a center anymore. When Crosby comes back, you have Crosby, McCann, Hornquist, and then your second line is Kahun, Malkin, Rust. That is solid. Anyway, Let's talk about Mark Scheifele for a minute. Um, how many empty net goals do you think he has on the season? He's shooting 20% again for the fourth straight season. How many of those do you think are empty netters?
Good question. I'm gonna guess like 30%.
Zero.
What?
He has no empty net goals. He's just good, it turns out. He might I honestly don't I don't think anybody in the league has been as consistently high of a shooting percentage as he has. Stone was like floating around there for a while. Stamkos was floating around there for a while, but Scheifele I think just has the most consistent high shooting percentage in the entire league. Might be the best sniper in the league, which is crazy because you just for some reason he doesn't come off as that, and yet he's been doing it so consistently. I think it's probably because he doesn't have the volume to put behind his shot uh, to really, wind up in like Rocket Richard territory. But, you see the Austin Matthews and the Pasternaks of the world being the guys that we're thinking of. We think, and of course, Ovechkin, thinking of the guys that we think about when we think of goal scorers. But Matthews and Pasternak are this season a little higher than their norm for their shooting percentage. Whereas we're seeing this so consistently from Scheifele that it's hard to ignore at this point. 4 straight seasons of being, around a 20% shot that's pretty incredible.
You've almost got to wonder what's going to happen if that ever falls off, right? Because if it does, oh, car alarm going off out there. If it does fall off, like he's going to see a pretty big drop off. It's kind of like Pavelski, I think. We not to the same extent where Pavelski goes from being worth something to being worthless, but just in the sense of you're going to see a guy lose a lot of points if his shooting percentage goes down. And you'll probably see a big effect around the team too, because a lot of guys benefit from Scheifele's high shooting percentage.
I was thinking about that, but the fact that it's been going on for this long just makes me think maybe that's just it. Maybe that's just what he does.
Yeah, totally agree.
And he's gonna be looking like a 90-point guy this season. Sweet. I was thinking about shipping him out in my Dynasty League, and now I'm just kind of like, why? Maybe I buy it. Maybe I believe it now. Maybe he is a 30-plus goal guy per season, 35, with kind of similar to a little bit higher assist numbers going in as well.
Oh boy.
And he also he's not a slouch when it comes to some of the other peripherals as well. He gets some hits, not a crazy amount, but like enough to kind of register, and some PIMs as well. So interesting player.
That's it. You are drinking the Scheifele Kool-Aid.
So I traded for him in the offseason in the same Dynasty League. My first thought was I traded Stone for Scheifele because I needed a center. And I was thinking, I basically traded the same player for the same player from a fantasy perspective. And then my first thought was, I don't like Scheifele. He's not the highest shooting. He's got this crazy shooting percentage forever. And the only thing I really like about him is that he's young. And now the more I'm looking at it, I'm like, if he's a 20% guy and he's acting like he is a 20% guy, this has been consistent enough that it's hard to ignore, like we've been mentioning here. If he can kind of get it together on the power play, if he can be Blake Wheeler style of 30-plus power play points, he's going to be really, really good for a really long time. And I think that's plausible for him. What's his pace? He's got 16 power play points in 45 games right now, so that's right around 30. Last season, he only had 23. So we could see him be even more valuable than he's already seemed to be over the last handful of seasons here.
Yep, agreed. Do you have any more?
Yes, I do.
Oh, then go for it. Oh, of course there's one more. Okay. Okay, I know you have one more. I know what it is. Go ahead and say it.
Tony DeAngelo mentioned in the end of November, he basically retweeted a statistician tweet, or rather, it wasn't necessarily a statistician that had tweeted this, but it was a graph. I think it was a evolving wild graph, charting hockey graph or something about the expected goals for and shooting percentage of Ryan Strome, and essentially made fun of statisticians and said, like, people think that these charts are all that matters. Watch the games. Strome's like the best player on the team or something like that. And I feel like a lot of those of us that use stats more than eye tests and more than anything else, really. We rely on stats to tell us a story, and we've seen the history of Ryan Strome, and especially those of us that are Islander fans and saw Strome, come into the league with this highly touted, he's going to be great attitude, and then soured on him and then traded him, and then he didn't do much in Edmonton and moved again, to now see him be so good. We were all seeing this tweet and being like, ooh, I can't wait to see how wrong Tony D is. And apparently he's just good now. I don't know. And then, of course, Tony D himself has gone completely berserk especially over the last week, but over the last month and change, ever since he got that top power play deployment, he's just been an absolute monster. It's funny in the same levels that it's infuriating to see this happening from because we try to give our advice based on what the numbers are telling us, and when somebody comes and says the numbers don't matter, watch the games, and then that actually winds up being what is happening this season, it makes everything feel kind of weird. But it's fun to see in the same route. I would like, from a personal standpoint, it's good to see Ryan Strome succeeding, and D'Angelo for the same kind of viewpoint.
Yeah, I mean, Strome, I think, also is a little bit of a case in which line mates have helped a lot. Like Mika or Panarin, doesn't matter who he's with, are both elite players, right? And can make people around them significantly better. And not taking away from Strome's own ability, but having that has certainly helped him. And then Tony D is his own special case, right? He's shooting at 12%, which is really high for a defenseman. His minutes are still only at around 20. Just for reference, over the last 7 days or whatever, this ridiculous stretch where he has 7 points in 3 games, like his shots per 60 is 11, and compare that to a guy like John Carlson who's at 6, or Brent Burns who's at 7, or when he's at his best is around 9. So like Tony D to me is, I've seen a lot of people being like, oh my god, I need to trade for Tony D, and I like him a lot more now than I did. I'm not dropping him, but I still hold the same thing that I said about him way in the past, is while he's top power play, sure. Like while he's playing on this top power play with the Breadman and Mika and Kreider, sure, why not? But as soon as he loses that deployment, I don't really care anymore. And that was kind of the same story when he originally kind of came into the forefront, and the same with Adam Fox. So I don't know. I still use that same advice, I think, with him.
I'll go ahead and take us into the injury report now that we're done talking about Tony D forever. First up, Jacob Silverberg is day-to-day with an upper body injury. He's unfortunately going to miss the All-Star game, which is kind of a bummer, honestly. But, whatever. Next up, Antti Ranta, as always, is day-to-day with a lower body injury. We've got Dylan Strome day-to-day with an ankle injury. Jonas Donskoy is day-to-day with a concussion. Devin Dubnyk is day-to-day with another personal. His wife is undergoing a procedure, so we'll see how that goes. Brendan Gallagher is day-to-day with headaches. Guy has concussion, comes back for a day, and is now out with headaches. I'm going to say he still has a concussion. Let's be honest. Probably activated him a little too early. Ben Sherratt is day-to-day with a lower body injury. Shane Gostisbehere is day-to-day with a knee injury. We've got Logan Couture out week to week with a broken ankle. Andre Palat is day-to-day with lower body injury. And this seems wrong, but I only have 3 guys that returned last week of fantasy note. It's possible that the feed that I read this from missed some, but the only ones I see here are Robin Leonard, Ricky Rax, and Duke. And Duke wasn't even really out for very long. He's only missed a couple of games, or 1 game. So it's possible that there's more people that returned, but I didn't see any that have fantasy relevance. And by returned, I mean they were out for long enough for them to make... They were out at least over last weekend for me to have noticed that they were out at all. So if they left for like a day, like with an illness, they were not going to make the list to begin with.
Yep. Okay, let's move into drop candidates and who you should be eyeing to get off of your team. And my first one here is going to be Mackenzie Blackwood. Yep. Had a little bit of a rant last week about how I didn't get all the hype around him. And I'm kind of at the same spot. And I don't think he should be 45% owned, especially when you see guys like Dell coming onto the scene. You have Elvis playing really well. You just have better teams. That you have Qdobin, and now they've called up Corey Schneider. Not that that's any better or worse for him. It's just that the Devils suck. I don't see a point in holding Mackenzie Blackwood.
Well, Blackwood's hurt now. That's why they called him up, right?
Oh, you're right. He is. I missed that. But
yeah.
I don't see a reason to hold
Louis
Mackenzie
Domingue.
Blackwood. Oh, yeah.
NHL starter Louis
Lovely.
Domingue.
Lovely. The Devils are something. They are a team.
Francouz. Where's he gonna go?
I will say I have a
Not
lot
the
of good things to say about the Devils here coming out.
Can't wait to disagree with you. Okay. My first one is Ryan Graves. Defense 48%. I still think he's good in bangers leagues that include blocks. That's fine. But for the standard Yahoo categories, he's just not doing enough. His surge in ownership was all related to this point streak. Not even a streak, but just this beginning of the season to mid-season where he was producing for whatever reason. Fact of the matter is, right now he has no points since December 21st. I don't really see an avenue for him to be getting a ton of points. He might still get some here and there, but he's going to be probably around a 30-point pace rest of the season, which is not enough considering he doesn't quite bring the extra business that you'd need in a standard league to make him worth holding. At 48%, it seems too high, especially when you have guys like Chronic and Vatanen that are just chilling at like 25%.
Yep, exactly. I mean, I had him as well on my list, and that's kind of was my take as well. 49% owned, that's just too high. When you consider how many leagues he has to be owned in to get to 49%, there's many, many leagues where I don't see him worth it.
And replacements. The thing that confuses me the most, whenever I see high-owned defensemen, I'm like, okay, there must be, people just don't want to move defensemen. And that's kind of understandable because it's such a shallow kind of position that when you're moving them, you're probably not going to be able to find like a long-term hold for the most part. So people find Graves who went off and they're just like, oh, he's got the talent, I'll hang on to him. But when you see guys like Chronic and Vatanen just hanging out, it's just weird to me. Just strange.
Yeah, I agree. And my next one here, my last one, because you took Graves from me, is actually Joe Pavelski.
Again. Yeah, I got him too.
Yeah, again. Center right wing, 71% owned. I don't get it. I really don't get why people are holding on to him. Especially now that we know that the Sharks are more defensive. I get his IPP is just
Stars, not the Sharks.
Stars. Why did I say Sharks? It is a Sunday, folks.
You know why you said Sharks. You know exactly why you said Sharks. You're talking about Joe Pavelski.
I have talked plenty about Joe Pavelski while he's been on the Stars, though, to be fair. See, the thing is, Joe Pavelski, sure, his IPP is crazy, crazy low, okay? It's at 23%, 24% over the last 30 days. Fine. Really low. I get that. That is an area that he can improve. The problem there is that say that IPP comes back to normal, it is not enough to make him fantasy relevant. He's barely at a 25-point pace over those last 30 days. His IPP comes back up. Okay, what? Is he a 40-point player? Cool. That's still not worth holding. His shots are completely gone. He's on a 153 shot pace. His last 30 days is a 126 shot pace. His shooting percentage has come back down to be around 9.5% compared to 20% last year. There is nothing to hold here. Nothing. He is at best a streamer in deep leagues. And there are so many players I'd rather have than Joe Pavelski.
Yeah, I would say that people are going to definitely do the math on that and say if he goes from 23% IPP to 70%, that should triple his.
But that's not who he is. He's a 44. He's a 44% IPP guy on the season.
I'm just saying that's going to be a YouTube comment or something.
That's fine. I'll take it. Look, I'll take it. And at the very first time that I called out Joe Pavelski, right? If I remember correctly, I said if you do the math on how many shots he's on the ice for and adjust his IPP and his on-ice shooting percentage and everything, he is a 45 to 50 point guy.
That's here's what I'll say about Joe Pavelski to kind of dogpile on the drop him stuff. He's getting under 14 minutes a game in his last couple games.
Yep.
Yeah. I did write this yesterday, so let me take a quick look at what he got in his last game. It may have gone up a little bit. Oh yeah, of course he skated 18 minutes in his last game, but didn't do anything with it.
Of course.
But of course he did. But over the 3 games before that, he was skating 13, 14, 14, then another 19-minute game. So it seems like they skate him 14 minutes a game, and then once in a while he skates 17 to 19 minutes. I don't know why. But his ice time is way lower than it was historically for him, essentially. He's never skated this few minutes, and it's not going to go up. I said few again. Come on.
I'm so low on Pavelski. Drop him.
Trying. I said fewer. I'm using the right words. Okay. My last one, Andre Palat, left wing, 42%. I kind of hinted at this. there's nowhere for him to be anymore. Palat's value comes from when he gets to play with players that boost his value, and he doesn't have that, and he's hurt now. So 42%, he's not worth owning. Even the couple games that he was in before he got hurt, he wasn't doing anything. Power play 2, not on a significant line, is going to be death knell for him as far as long-term holds.
Yep, absolutely. And you took my last guy before in Ryan Graves, and we both had Joe Pavelski, so we're done. So let's move on to long-term targets and talk about who we want to eye long-term. So my first one here is not necessarily, I guess, every single league. It's more so slightly deeper leagues. And if you're looking for defense, again, if you're looking to replace guys like, I don't know, if you still own PK Subban. I'm still seeing PK Subban get traded around at our keeper league, for example, and it's just a joke. I don't even know why he's still owned. Essa Lindell is my first one. Defenseman, 33% owned. Been doing really, really well since John Klingberg went out. And he's playing around 50% of the power play time right now, and Heiskanen's not doing too hot. So I could see him kind of keeping some of that deployment there. His honest shooting percentage over the last 30 days or so is pretty high. I wouldn't expect that to continue. And ultimately, he is John Klingberg, just in another body with more blocks. That's who he is right now. Right now, that's who he is. He's a points
they gave
only.
Heiskanen a lot more of the power play time last game. He got 70%, actually 90%, but he split 20 of it with Lindell. Yeah,
I like what Lindell's doing though, and I think that while Klingberg is out, if he can keep some of this deployment, even if it's split with Miro, I think that he can. I think he can be kind of a 60-point pace guy, which for a defenseman
he's not going to be 60-point pace. While
he's
no
out.
way.
He's been that. He's been a 69.
I still don't.
Pace
I don't.
guy.
I don't buy him a 60-point pace. Even if John Klingberg died tomorrow, I wouldn't think he's going to be a 60-point pace.
I think he can be. I think he can for a points only league or points league. I think he's a pretty decent option right now. Yep. For longer term while Klingberg's out.
I don't like Lindell.
I know you don't. That's why I put him first. I kind of knew it would get you rattled.
My first one is Tyler Toffoli.
I have him too. Oh,
whoa.
Robot mouth. Oops, I turned on the robot effect.
I have him too. There's a normal one.
Okay, I'm going to start that over because that was terrifying.
No, you got to keep that.
Okay, fine. Tyler Toffoli, left wing, right wing, 12%. May have actually gone up slightly. Didn't score or do anything his last game, but he got 3 shots. He's been shooting pretty well lately. Skating a lot more minutes after being assigned to the top line. The big concern I had when I picked him up was what will happen to Toffoli when Dustin Brown comes back. Answer was nothing. Brown did not get top right wing back, which makes sense because Toffoli's playing pretty well there. Big downside, and is pretty clear what that downside is power play points, although he has gotten a couple over his last few games. So hopefully being assigned top line or top power play, which he has been, will be beneficial, and he'll be able to kind of exploit that, but we'll see. Also, pretty high on the trade rumors type from the Kings, so pretty decent chance he gets moved sometime soonish, and we'll see what happens after that. But in the meantime, I like what's happening with him.
Yeah. So my next guy here, you also may not like this guy. Nico Hischier.
I have him too.
Yeah. He has put this team on his back. And look, a lot is unsustainable. I love Nico Hischier and I love him rest of the season, but what he's doing is kind of crazy. Over the last 30 days, he's on a 70-point pace, has a 23% shooting, has a 71% IPP, and his honest shooting is at 11.5. It's all just a little bit inflated, especially his shooting percentage. He has 7 goals, and his expected goals are 3 over that time span. So he's outperforming by a wide margin right now, and he passes the eye test though. I've watched because I wanted to pay attention to my Blackwood take. I wanted to see Gusev and Coleman and Hischier and just see what the hell is going on with that Hall, because they do look better with that Hall for some reason. And he passes the eye test. Absolutely. I think the problem for me right now with him is just unsustainability. But if you're in a deeper league or you're looking for centers, Nico Hischier is a fantastic option, especially if they have the problem with him going forward too. Over these next few days, I took a look at it. You're not going to have many opportunities to start him. The Devils do not have a great schedule leading up to the All-Star break, so you may be able to just leave him on the wire and wait for All-Star break and maybe pick him up after. That's what I'm doing. And center is so deep that there's a good chance that he sits there a little longer than he should. So I think I would urge a little bit of patience with him. And I don't think it's a rush to the wire to grab him, but someone I'd absolutely be eyeing here going forward.
Yep. My last one is Ilya Kovalchuk. Left wing, right wing, 21%. Why not? He's getting the minutes. He's getting the deployment both on line and on power play. I don't see why they would move him off that top right wing while we have Gallagher out. But even with Gallagher back, he's still getting top six time and seeing, you could call it top power play. I don't know. They kind of do that no clear top power play type thing. But I don't know what this 6-hit game was, but I would love to see him throw the body more. So if that's going to be a thing going forward, that's great too. Because Kovalchuk's a pretty big dude. He's like 225, 6'3". Like he can hit people. But coupling that all up with the fact that he's shooting a pretty good amount since joining Montreal, and he's point per game since joining Montreal. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and I really like that he was out there in overtime.
Yep,
it says a lot.
And scored.
Yeah,
so that means they're going to trust him again, probably.
Yeah, I mean he's earning his spot at the moment while people are out. He's certainly earning his deployment. I'm glad I grabbed him in our most competitive league, and I'm going to be holding for the near future here at least.
I grabbed him in like 3 or 4 listener leagues.
Yeah, I mean he's
and on our Fantrax Invitational League.
It was kind of hilarious to me how he was one of the most dropped players after going point per game in his first 2, and then he didn't score in his 3rd game, and everyone started dropping him. It was just kind of funny to me. Yeah, didn't see that coming. So you took Tyler Toffoli from me. So do you have anybody else?
Nope.
Oh, so there you go. So we can move right into the week preview and talk about the schedule. So the schedule, like I said, is really good this week for fantasy. And there's quite a few teams with 4 games. So Carolina, the New York Islanders, who have 5 games. Yes, finally, a team has 5 games. And they actually have quite a few off nights there, too. Montreal, Philadelphia, Boston, Pittsburgh, Chicago, and Columbus all have 4 games. And then teams with 2 games are going to be Florida and Edmonton. So sorry, McDavid and Draisaitl owners. Just not going to get a lot this week. Although who knows? Honestly, they can go off at any given time. And then teams that play 3 off nights, there's only one, and that is Carolina. But when you look at it, the off nights aren't everything because you have the New York Islanders who play 5 games. A lot of these teams like Boston have 2 at the early part of the week, and then some have at the end of the week. So you can do a lot. You can add a lot of starts this week. And so starting that off, I have 3 Islanders in a row here that I'm going to talk about. And I actually think I don't have the guy you're going to recommend. So my 3 here, my first one is Brock Nelson, center left wing, 59%. His deployment, his minutes have actually dropped a little bit recently, so that's not so hot. I'm not thrilled with that, but he shoots a lot, and at the end of the day, you're going to add a lot of shots. Devin Tays, defenseman, 7%. He's been playing really well and actually been getting more minutes here recently. So I like what Devin Tays has been doing, and especially in deeper leagues, he's a pretty good option. The last guy here that I have from the New York Islanders is Matt Martin, left wing, 2% owned. So that's just a bangers. You need hits, and you have room. You could pick him up, and you probably straight up win hits just by having Matt Martin. Yeah. You probably don't even need him the whole week. You could probably play him 3 of the 5 games, and you win hits.
Yep. And I'll go ahead and tack on the last one that we're kind of hinting at in Anthony Beauvillier. Wait, did you mention him? Did you?
I did not have Beauvillier. I knew you'd have him, though.
Yeah. You didn't have Eberle either, did you?
I did not, because I don't know. I just don't like Eberle.
Yeah, so there's a few options. Beauvillier is probably my favorite of the low-owned guys. Center left wing, 10%. Not the biggest in the peripheral department, but he's getting deployment with Barzal and on the same power play unit with Barzal, so that is enough for me. Then Eberle is fine. I don't even know what his ownership percentage is. I didn't put him down here. He's just another option. It is because if you can get all 5 starts, it's hard to beat Islanders, even if they're not like necessarily the best. Because there's so many teams that still only have 3 starts. I would take Eberle at 5 starts over almost anybody else on the wire that only gets 3. And by almost, I mean pretty much anybody else on the wire. Just because the 2 extra starts are going to make up pretty much any difference, unless he just totally goes cold.
Yeah, I mean, the starts are what matter the most, honestly. Like that, especially if you have room. I mean, being able to add 5 starts is just a godsend if you have the room at in any given week.
Yep. So my next one is Eric Holla, center left wing, 26%.
Had him too. Yep.
They've got that nice beginning of the week schedule where they get to play Monday, Wednesday. So you can take that and Wait, do they? No, they have the end of this. These are the ones that have the end, right? They've got Friday, Sunday, but also Monday. So they've got 3 off nights with Carolina. So you can take advantage of that. And Hollett's like, good. He's a good streamer. He's always going to be, when Carolina has a good schedule, he's going to show up as a streamer option.
Along the same vein, sort of, on Carolina is Warren Fogle. Kind of a very under the radar guy. He is 5% owned, left wing, right wing. He is not sustainable. His numbers have been kind of ridiculous recently, but I like what he's doing. He passes the eye test. He looks really good on the ice, and he's clicking really well. So I like him as a hot hands, just pick him up and see what happens sort of guy. Especially if he's 5%, you're probably looking in a deeper league. And if I'm betting on a team, I think Carolina is one of my favorite teams to bet on, just because they're so deep and depth players tend to score quite a bit with them. And so betting on a guy like Warren Fogle isn't as crazy as, for example, betting on a deeper Los Angeles King player or something like that. I think betting with Carolina sometimes actually works in your favor. So Warren Fogle at 5% seems like a very good, just hot hand effect option in deeper leagues.
Yep. Okay, I have 2 more. They're both on the same team, so I'm just going to cover them both. The first one we've already talked about is Ilya Kovalchuk. So I like him as a long-term ad, but he also works pretty well as a short-term, depending on your league. You get him Monday, Wednesday against Calgary, and then against a tired Chicago. So that's about as good a matchup as they can get. And then we've already talked about him, so I'll just move on. Nick Suzuki is my last suggestion. Left wing, right wing, 12%. Same deal, Monday, Wednesday. If he stays hot, you can continue if you have the room for him. But then they play that super heavy Thursday and a fairly heavy Saturday, so you may not have the room. You can move off him to somebody like maybe a Hurricane to play Friday, Sunday with is an option. So yeah, those are the 2 guys I like that are low owned from the Canadiens for next week.
And then my last one here is Boston, who has a good early week schedule. They have 2 off nights early, and that's going to be David Krejci, center, 33% owned. David Krejci is always going to be one of my favorite streaming options on Boston when they have a good schedule, and 33% is high. There's a chance that he's not available in your league. And to piggyback off of that, I kind of like Jake DeBrusk a little bit. He's been playing a lot better as of late. You know that we're not huge proponents of Jake DeBrusk long term, but in the short term, I don't hate it. And the same thing kind of with David Krejci is just good guys on good teams that on any given night can have a great night because of the players that are around them if things go right. So I like David Krejci at center, 33% owned. I've kind of paid attention to him. I might pick him up, but I already have Eric Howla, so I'm not sure. It's an interesting week because there's 2 options, right? You can go with this short-term approach, or this is also, I think, a very good week to approach some long-term ads. And even though you may not be able to play them as much, probably they're going to get you some play. Like Cahoon, I think, is a good example of someone we talked about, right? Where Pittsburgh has 4 games, and maybe you can add 2 starts out of him, but he might be a good long-term option here if he continues to play with them. So you may not necessarily get max 4 starts, but if you're already doing well in the starts department, Cahoon is a guy that you might be able to gamble on that gets 4 games, and just kind of see what happens. Yep, and there you go. That's the episode.
Yep.
That's the tweet. Yep, that's it. So thank you for listening. That is the week preview. The All-Star break is coming up, so be sure to go into that strong. And as always, hit us up on Twitter if you have any questions, or in our Discord. Twitter is at FantasyHockeyPD, and the Discord you can find there as well. And also, if you liked the episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you're listening. Spotify, you can't, but if you do listen there, thank you. Just listening helps us out. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening. That's the show.
Yep. Thanks for listening.